ill will in our town, and very strong opinions, and so the people are disenfranchised either because they don't want a casino or they feel like their rights are being taken away.
But let me tell you what the big difference in that is, and why the selectmen and Mr. Pecos react differently, is that the people who feel they're being disenfranchised, who are no casino,
Yes.
they are the ones that are far more likely to vote in local elections.
Yes.
The people
You're right.
who are going to be disenfranchised because they might not get a chance to ever vote on it are, and they may very well be the majority in town, but they are the people who generally don't vote in local elections. And if you're a selectman, or if you're a town manager who depends on the Board of Selectmen to keep your job and be reappointed, you are going to pay more attention to the people who are likely to vote than you are to the people who are not likely to vote. And until the people who haven't been likely to vote show that they are going to come out and be a force in those local politics, they will continue to be ignored, and they will continue to be disenfranchised on that local level. And to some degree, they'll deserve it, because they haven't gone out and done it. It's really, really difficult. When you're a selectman, you know who's going to go out to vote. You know who you have to go to. And you can be the best selectman in the world, and you can take the most honorable position in the world, but if you can't get reelected, then you really can't do anything, and you can't really accomplish any of your political goals. So, that's really the problem, I think, right now in Foxborough, is that the people who are suddenly going, hey, I'm left out of this, are the people who were never speaking in it in the first place.
Right.
And they need to learn to get involved. That's why I really believe that this local election coming up, while there's no casino proposal to be had, is really a critical place where the people who are in favor of listening to the discussion, who are in favor of at least listening if a proposal come down, have to start getting involved in local affairs now. If they don't, if they just sit back and say, hey, call me when we're ready to vote on a casino, forget it. You're dead in the water before you ever go.
Yeah.
You've got to get involved
And
now.
I have a lot of friends like that. They just, well, I'm waiting for the vote.
Yep.
And,
Could be waiting a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, it's one thing to say, to try to get people to go to town meeting. And I'm a town moderator.
Yeah.
That's really difficult, and that takes a lot of effort. But to get people to vote in local elections, I mean, right now in most towns it's between 10 and 20% of people are voting in most local elections. This selectmen's race with the casino issue will probably stir up a lot of interest. It certainly stirred up a lot more candidates.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the first indication of whether or not a casino will ever reach the voters of Foxborough. I don't expect that suddenly 50% of the voters will turn out. But if the side that is saying, yes, let's listen, is saying, yeah, look, I want to work on that, but I don't want to get involved in this local selectmen stuff. That's too local. I don't want to do that. Big mistake. Until you get involved, until you show your local officials that you're going to be a force in town, they don't have to listen to you.
Right.
And again, if more anti-casino candidates come out, like Ginny, who's come out openly, I'm not for this. If more people like that win the election, and that's going to send a loud message to the town too. If they, if the anti-casino people have a clean sweep, that's certainly going to affect it. That's something to think about, and a lot of that is the candidates that run in the positions they take.
Absolutely. And you're going to see, like you said, I think the people on the anti-casino side are much more emotional about this. So I think that you will see a lot more of them vote. So it'll be really interesting. There's nothing tangible for people to grab onto right now on the other side. So that's why people keep asking me, are you pro-casino? And I say, okay, let's say I'm pro-casino. And then you ask me why. I don't know.
Well, that's typical. When if they do a poll and they have President Obama running against a generic candidate, he loses every time. When you put a face to the candidate, then the odds change a little bit because, like you say, it's tangible and it's intangible. And do you agree with what I'm saying? You've seen those polls. I mean, anytime a generic candidate, he doesn't do so good against. When you put him against this one, then his odds go up.
People don't know what to get involved for. They don't, there's
Exactly.
nothing pulling them in right now unless you're aggravated with the fact that people are trying to stop you from being informed.
And,
But
really, honestly, if I were a resident of Foxborough and I cared about this and I were on the side of I want to listen to a proposal, what the tact I would take, honestly, is I would say to people right now, listen, you've got your Board of Selectmen in town that doesn't want you to speak. They don't want to hear you. They don't want to give you the chance to express yourself. You've got a whole group of people in town who don't want the issue to go before the voters. Why don't they want it to go? They're afraid it might pass. They're afraid there might actually be more people in town who want something like this and are willing to and want the money from it than don't.
Yeah.
It's fear that they're not the majority that drives the anti-casino people really crazy. So if I were running if you could find a side there, and I would do it, I would stress that, listen, these people are taking away your rights. These people don't want you to vote. You've got a local government that's telling you, listen, we're going to cut you off at the pass. We don't want you to have the chance to say what's going on. And you've got a Board of Selectmen that, without ever hearing a proposal, wrote letters to everybody and their brother saying, we're not interested. We don't know what it is. We don't know how much money we can make. We don't know the rules quite. And we don't know exactly how it's going to affect us.
And we don't want to know.
But we're against it.
yeah, and we don't want to know because people might like it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I would say. It's the closed-mindedness of the local government that you have to wake people up and you have to say, look, if your government isn't willing to listen to something that's going to bring $10 to $15 million a year plus into your coffers, lower your property tax, pay for your school renovations, and do all these things, if they're not going to listen to that, what else aren't they listening to?
Yeah.
While you're off, ignoring your town government, what else are they doing? People care more about their property tax than they care about how much tax they pay to the federal government. Usually people pay more to the federal government. And you ask them about the federal government, they say, oh, darn government, that's a waste of time, blah,
Because
blah,
they
blah.
don't have to write that check.
Right. But if you suddenly say to them, well, they were thinking about putting a local meals tax in town that's going to cost you $20 a year. Oh my God, that's enough. We do.
Yeah.
And the reason is they have more control over their local government than they do over the federal or the state. So if you get them excited about that, if you get them understanding that their local government is denying them the right, that's really the only issue that can excite anybody in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the benefits that I see is, a portion of the revenue that comes into the town has to be allotted towards the schools, correct? I don't know what
Well,
exactly it is in Foxborough.
That's not entirely true,
No.
but basically, in most communities, state aid accounts between 60 and 70% of state aid goes to schools.
Okay, okay.
I know in Mansfield, the split has always been 70-30 of any money that comes
Yeah,
in.
I thought I had heard Foxborough was like 60-40, but
Yeah,
again,
it
I
could
haven't
be.
researched it, so I don't I don't like quoting things.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of money into the school system.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that I am very strong about is education and the school system. And quite honestly, 5 years from now isn't really going to benefit my kids very much.
Right.
But that's how strongly I feel that millions of dollars could benefit the schools. We have good school systems, or a good school system, but there are so many things that we could do.
Well, let me ask you a question now. So you basically know where your Board of Selectmen is on this.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're doing the ostrich thing. How does your local school committee feel about this? Do you know? I mean,
They actually came out and they didn't do an official vote, but 4 out of 5 of them want to see the information. And they've also...
I would expect they would.
I would hope that a group of educators or that's working for our education system would be in favor of more information.
I would expect it in Mansfield,
so.
too. I would expect if that was the case, that the school committee would, be very vocal, at least, to see what was going on. I mean, they're the biggest spender in town.
Yep.
Okay, that's a fact.
Yep.
And they would receive the majority of the money that came
Yeah.
in from this. You'd think they would be very interested.
Yeah, all of our schools are in need of repair.
They might be disappointed in the stand your board has taken.
I don't think they've come out and talked against anybody, but they've definitely said they're open to information.
Right.
Yeah, this is the risk-reward ratio right now of getting involved politically on this issue from a local standpoint in Foxborough is pretty high. I mean, if you come out and say I'm against the casino, your political stock pretty much rises pretty quickly. If you come out and say I'm in favor of listening to the plan, you might get a few people, but again, you immediately lose a certain percentage of those people who are likely to vote. So it doesn't really pay right now if you're running for anything in Foxborough to come out and say that that you're for it. But it's all about framing the issue.
Right.
And if the anti-casino people continue to make this a save our town, this is the evil casino coming in, you've got to vote no and cut it off at the knees. If that continues to be the issue, then they're going to win overwhelmingly. If it becomes an issue of the freedom to listen, the freedom to know, and to not be treated like children who don't know any better, because that's how the Board of Selectmen has treated the people in Foxborough, and that's how the no people are treating the people in Foxborough. If I had a person who was a diehard no, if I had my good friend Ginny, who is sitting here now, I'd say, Ginny, what are you afraid of? If you're going to let it come to a vote, I mean, some people say, well, we don't want to spend the money on the long process. Well, that's a bunch of crap because there's all kinds of mitigation money built into the whole process.
We don't spend the money.
So you don't spend it. And the other thing you hear, and again, we talked about it last time, Dan, is this whole thing is, oh, it's driving our town apart. This issue is tearing us apart. We've got to stop it. Issues don't tear towns apart. People tear towns apart. It's the behavior of people, whether they're for it or against it, that's causing the problems. And so, don't blame it on the issue. Take responsibility. It's the way you act. And I think Traci's been an example of trying to do it, the right way.
She's also been an example of what happens when you do. Now, we spoke of your sister.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously you said you haven't talked with her.
Right.
So how do we know about your sister? How does everybody know about your sister now? You were the target of some background investigations.
I had to have been, and actually it isn't even that one fact, because quite honestly there's a lot of people around me that know that, and it wouldn't take too much. You could look through a few Facebook things, although I'm not friends with her. You could look through photos or whatever, but there were some other things that I was asked about in the interview that aren't even in the article that they wouldn't have known if they didn't do an investigation or didn't talk to close friends of mine.
Right.
And the newspaper itself had no reason to investigate me. Somebody had to have brought something to them or a suspicion. So I don't know. It's, either way, it's unfortunate.
And so once again, you're not pushing for a casino at this point. You're just pushing for information. You just want best offer, what we're gonna, you want to see what the plan is, and so that's your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal isn't necessarily to see a casino in Foxborough.
No, I don't see all the negatives that everybody else, that they're trying to put out there, because we've spent the last 2 months vetting that information and researching it and discussing it, and no, I don't believe we're going to have prostitutes on Foxborough Common or drug dealers hanging on the streets. And so to me, it's a business proposal, as any development would be going in there. And if they were proposing an office park, we should be looking at it, and the numbers need to make sense.
Well, I know the Kraft Group has tried to get a biotech facility in there for years, and there's no takers. But I mean, is that something the people there really want? I mean, that proposes its own potential
and quite honestly,
hazards.
as a resident, honestly, the traffic from that
would impact. Well, we discussed that before. The traffic on something like that would be more of an impact because they have regular hours. People come in at 8 o'clock, they leave at 5 o'clock, whatever. You're going to have gridlock every day.
We don't have big rush hour traffic around Foxborough right now. We would with something like that.
But a casino would be a steady flow because nobody goes to the casino at the same time.
Right.
And if Bob Kraft could get a biotech plant to locate there and pay to it, he'd have it there by now. If he could get an amusement park to go there, he'd do it. Whatever he could get to go there that would make sense, he would do it. He is first, last, and always, as he's demonstrated over the years, a businessman. But he's done a good job. I really think it's going to come back down to the selectmen and what they do. I guarantee you, if you ask, what always cracks me up is that, Do you think the no people would be running around town saying, our Board of Selectmen spoke and the issue should be over? Would they be saying the same thing if the Board of Selectmen had voted 3-2 to go ahead with it?
Well,
do you think they'd then be running around saying, this issue is decided, let's not talk about it anymore?
They did, and this is what people don't talk about. But the beginning of December meeting, do you remember, they actually did vote 3-2 to proceed with the proposal.